first of all, congrats on your movie. I really enjoyed it, and I have a lot of questions about it. But I want to know, specifically with you, it's really hard in Hollywood to just direct or to make it as an actor, to make it as a producer. And one of the things I think people don't realize about you is you've been an actor, a director, a producer. You've won an Oscar for producing. You've been on the stage. You are very hard to pin down as one, like just one thing. How the F did you pull this off?
Well, thank you. I don't know if I pulled it off quite yet, but I'm still pretending to. No, I got really lucky early on as an actor. I started working quite a bit in my late teens and early 20s, mostly stage and actually only stage and film. But then I got a little curious about doing other things, and I wanted a little more control, and I wanted to choose who I was going to work with. So I formed a theater company when I co-founded this theater company called Naked Angels in the 80s. And Naked Angels was a place where a bunch of us as actors, New York theater actors, gave each other the space to write, direct, produce plays. And I got the bug, and we started like making theater together. And that then gave me the confidence to start trying to make movies as a producer and a director. And that took a lot more time. That was not a very satisfying financial endeavor. My bread and butter was definitely acting for many years until I, started to focus a little bit more on the producing, directing. And then I just was able to balance it. And I discovered the world of documentaries because I was producing a lot of movies. And I produced a documentary about soccer in America when Pele came to play for the New York Cosmos with Franz Beckenbauer, Giorgio Canaglia, Carlos Alberto. And they kind of turned American soccer upside down and tried to bring it to America. And the film that I was producing was terrible. So my partner said, "You better fix this, man." And then I just went to film school for documentary filmmaking on that movie, fell in love with that medium. And then my life kind of took this other turn. So I just was lucky that I got to discover docs. And I'd say that's been a huge, profound effect on my life since. But I like the balance. I like the balance of all of it.
You've done a lot of theater work. And every time I talk to people that do theater work, I'm always curious if you can talk about the differences in audiences depending on where you're performing. For example, if you're off Broadway, if you are like, do you notice that there's different audiences and that different energy depending on where you are?
Oh, huge. Audiences vary. When I did my first big play was a cult hit called Torch Song Trilogy. And the audience was, it's a play. It was kind of a groundbreaking play written by Harvey Fierstein, openly gay, about it was 3 parts. And the last part was about a gay couple that adopt a teenager, me. It was quite groundbreaking, but the audiences were, wild. I mean, wild. Harvey had this cult following. So, and then I went from that to Neil Simon, Brighton Beach Memoirs on Broadway, which also was wild audiences, but for a whole other reason. So I was spoiled. Those audiences doing comedic work, getting those laughs, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. And actually, one thing some people don't know, unless you do theater, is that even your audiences on a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night are not nearly as good as an audience on a Thursday night or a Saturday night or Friday night. It all varies, even the different nights. You have historic audiences for the night. Saturday nights tend to be like lousy audiences because they go out to dinner beforehand. The people usually get full and they don't laugh as much, But then you do off Broadway, or when I would do Naked Angels, the reason I sort of stopped doing plays is I was starring in this play called Shyster, playing the lead character in this small theater in Midtown Manhattan. And the audiences not only gave me nothing, I got slammed, the reviews were terrible. And I thought, wow, I'm busting my hump for no money. I'm going to take a break from theater as an actor. because those audiences did not respect or appreciate my performance at all.
Speaking of documentaries, which was the one that really was a pain in the ass to get financing for? The one that was just a ball buster to get made?
I'd say I gotta say, this is gonna sound really, I don't know, no one probably says this, but I've had not a lot of difficulty getting documentaries financed. The one where I went out on the limb the most financially was Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, Bright Lights. My girlfriend, basically like my wife and I co-made that together, but we funded the beginning of that ourselves, and we paid for it and shot for a while, and then we pitched it to HBO, who then ended up financing it. But I've done that a few times. But for some reason, nothing was as difficult to get made as Palmer in terms of, for me. Like that to me was the most difficult, one of the most difficult things to get made that I've been involved with. And yeah.
With that film, you're tackling subject matter that not a lot of people like talk about. Right. And especially because of the boy in the film.
Yeah. Feature films are difficult to get funding for. When I had my production company, my partner and I at the time, we had this big fight. Bennett Miller and Philip Hoffman came to our office to pitch us Capote. And, I really wanted to make it. My partner didn't. And it was a risk. Phil hadn't starred in a movie before. And, that movie had a lot of trouble getting made. And that was one of the best movies I'd ever seen. A lot of movies have trouble getting made. And, the doc world is, there have been docs that I've wanted to make that weren't financed that I just didn't make. But in terms of docs that I made, pretty much I've been able to find funding for relatively easily compared to feature films. I don't know why. It's just the way the world works. Well, first of all, docs are a lot cheaper. And docs have social, there's a lot of social impact in a lot of the docs that we make. So people want to push social impact agendas so you can find money. But the Palmer took, there were a lot of starts and stops. That was really tough to make and get off the ground. And it was tough to make while we were making it just because of the restraints and the restrictions.
Yeah, believe me, I have about 72 questions on Palmer, and we're almost there. But I need to also talk about the fact that you produced Tiger King, which is obviously you never know when you sign up, when you decide to develop something, what's going to happen with it. You hope for the best. When did you realize that you had something special with Tiger King?
Well, that was a long journey as well. Tiger King started, Eric Good, who's one of the two directors, was after I did The Cove, he called me, and he was a friend of mine. And I knew that he had this thing called the Turtle Conservancy. And he asked me to look at footage that he had filmed in China and in Indonesia about him going into wet markets, buying endangered species that were available. So he showed me that. He's like, we should do a movie. I'm like, I think this is a series. And we started talking about doing a series about reptiles, and Rebecca Chaiklin, who we had just done a movie on Occupy Wall Street and a movie on people making decisions. I had just done 2 docs with her. Rebecca and him had teamed up, and it took a long time to figure out what Tiger King was, because originally it was more of a movie about, or a series about monkey moms, people that like owned exotic pets, but they hadn't discovered Joe Exotic yet, or the story. And then, but we were trying to make something. And then when they discovered Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin, it was pretty clear that was, oh wait, this is a whole other situation. So I was in and out of that. I started just I had to make a living because there wasn't any money there. And they started filming and getting it together. And then when they had more stuff, I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. And it, and then we brought it to Netflix and started putting it together as that show. And we thought it was going to be good and people would be into it, but we didn't think, obviously, there was going to be a global pandemic and it was going to be the first thing that everybody started to watch.
Right. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything.
When you have that kind of success, and look, I know that Netflix must have been like, thank you so much. This is great because it was such a huge hit. What happens after that with like a Netflix? Do they all of a sudden call you and say, so what's the next thing?
I wish. I think they don't. I think Netflix, I've done well, the reason we had such access to Netflix was because I had done a couple movies with them before. And I brought this friend of mine on to help put the whole thing together at the end, Chris Smith, who had just done the Fire doc for them, which was another huge hit. So we had a real good track record with Netflix. But no, I think Netflix has so many, they don't care who makes what. I think they just want to keep making good things and they don't care who made them at this point. They could get whatever they want, but they're good people. And, certainly they've been great to me. That was my fourth, Tiger King was my fourth documentary with them series, I'd done 3 docs and then, so I was really lucky.
Of course, like everyone, I'm a huge fan of Succession. And I just have to ask, when you got involved in the project, what pulled you in on that? Was it the writing? Like, how did you get involved? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I watched a little of Succession, but this guy that I'd met in Brooklyn in the neighborhood was a few years before. He was going off to do the pilot of Succession as a producer, and we got to be friends. We were trying to do a United Nations kind of TV show. We had a mutual friend at the UN, and I remember him saying that. And then I don't know. I think I bumped into him, or I got this message from him that have I seen Succession? There's a little part they wanted me to play, and I had seen it, and I was like, oh my God, that's the show. Fuck, that show is so good. Holy shit. So they asked me to do a couple episodes. And as soon as I got to the set, these are the coolest actors. These are the coolest people. I just felt so comfortable. And I just was hoping they just keep asking me back. And it just worked out because they are. It's like, I said this on a few interviews, but it is like being part of a theater troupe, and you're part of an ensemble. And it reminded me of being in my theater company because everybody is so cool and everybody's from the theater on that show. A lot of actors who've done stage, and there's a lot of support for each other, and it's just a great environment. And I hadn't experienced that much doing TV, where it was like a family. And it was like, well, it was more like a theater company is only way I could describe it. And so then they asked me back this year, and I was like, of course, anything I'll do. It's a joy to be part of this amazing ensemble and these amazing writer producers. And yeah, it's great. I think season 3 is going to be just as good as the others.
They have this thing called good writing. I've noticed that it's kind of good. Have you noticed though, because you've done so many things in your career, you can tell when something is really popular, I'm sure, by what happens when you go to the supermarket, or when you're out in public, when people always want to talk to you about something. Obviously now, because everyone's wearing a mask, I think you're a little more anonymous, but did you notice before the pandemic that people were like constantly wanting to talk about Succession, or was it something else?
Yeah, your Succession is definitely, it's funny. I did, Succession is a great thing because I'm finally on a show that all my friends watch.
Right.
You know,
Got it.
so they see you, and that's exciting. I've done a lot of stuff that my friends are like, "Where you been? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing this." They're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, but yeah, people love to talk about Succession, no matter where you are. You know, I'm working on a documentary now about the Lincoln Project. The people, you know, the Lincoln Project. So,
Very aware.
so those guys all watch Succession. So it's very interesting to, you know, those guys all, you know, it's like, you guys watch Succession. Cool. Okay. It is something that people love to talk about for sure. Succession. And they're always like, when is it coming back? When is it coming back? And it's good people are looking forward to something.
This is my last question on it. I have to ask, where are you in the filming process? Have you guys started filming? Are you, where are you at?
Yeah, we've been filming for about 2 months.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yeah.
pretty far along.
Yeah, it takes a long time in these worlds. You know, you wear a mask and a shield, you know, then they call you to the set, you do the scene, take it off, and then they, you know, things take a little longer in COVID, you know, but yeah.
Got it. You're 2 months, you're on episode 3. I get it.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have some other stuff, but I want to jump into why I get to talk to you in case your headphones go dead. With Palmer, you talked about how it was a challenge to actually make the film. Can you sort of talk about, because some projects take, you know, all of a sudden you have a script and you're in front of cameras and like within a year, and other projects could take a decade. Talk a little bit about when you got involved in the project and maybe what pulled you into it that said, I want to spend time making this.
I read the script in 2016. It wasn't like, oh, here, do you want to direct this? It was more like my agent going, do you like this type of material? I said, I like this material. I want to direct this. And he said, I think there's a director. And I said, well, just in case they fall apart, let me meet with the people that own it and the writer. So I met with them. They, I guess there was a director. The director did fall out. They called me and said, okay. But meanwhile, a director falling out, it still wasn't like a studio movie that was greenlit. It still had to get financing and casting. So, you know, these are independent films. How do you make an independent film? You need a star to star in it, to get the financing approved, blah, blah, blah. As you know, you probably interviewed many people who've told you that story and you know it yourself. But so it was like a game of a list of 6 actors, get one of the 6 and you can get financing. And in 2018, I worked on the script quite a bit with Cheryl, the writer, who's fabulous. I had a possible actor that was on the list saying that he may do it. I started casting the boy because the boy is the big, you know, Sam, you need Sam. And I started scouting locations. It looked all like it was happening. And the money kind of fell apart and the actor's schedule started shifting and that was it. I lost it. And it was like, oh my God. I was so depressed, man. I was so depressed. I turned down even a Netflix acting role on a series, money, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I was trying to figure this out and I was making this other documentary with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I gave the script to his agent, like, who would you play as Palmer? And they said, to his manager, sorry. And they said, this is perfect for Justin. And I'm like, Justin Theroux? He's too old for this. Justin Timberlake. I went, wow, that's interesting. Justin Timberlake. Yeah, he's from the South. He's an athlete. I'm like, whoa, he's a great actor. I didn't think of that. So then it became a long courting process. You know, he's a big star. He's on tour for his concert. He hadn't acted in a while. He's been making music. And I you know, because I just had to make this film. Like nothing was going to stop me. I love this character of Sam. He was like my nephew, Max. I love this character of Palmer. He was a guy going back to try to get second chances. I love stories of redemption. I love that it was set in the South, in red state America. I love the fact that I could go inside of this world, go inside of these people's heads. I thought I knew so much. I didn't know shit, like I needed to learn more about this country that I lived and I raised in. I wanted to learn about other people in the country, what was going on. And I wanted to tell a story of hope and a story of people who come together. And I just said, this is the story. And I also wanted to find a script that I could bring what I've been doing in the doc world to fiction, like be able to kind of take all these years of making docs and put it into my fiction work. Use it, telling a fictional story in a very authentic, real life way. So I basically told Justin what I just told you, and I think he kind of got that and kind of felt like and he loved the story. And it took a long time, as I said, and then he said, like, look, man, I'll make this, but we're not going to start shooting till we have this kid. So I said, I know. I have the kid. I think he may still be able to do it. So I called that kid that I was going to cast, and I read him again, and he had grown. He was too old. His voice was. So we had to start over, and Justin is like, look, man, I'll give you 2 days of just reading kids if you need to. So find me 6 kids. And I thought I had the kid. I thought I had 1 or 2 really good choices, but I couldn't find 6. And at the last minute, this kid, Ryder Allen's tape that I auditioned him, I thought he was good, but he was 7. He was so young. And I was trying to cast somebody a little older so I had more time to shoot with and somebody who may have a little bit more maturity. And there was just, once Justin and Ryder got into the room together, there was no denying that this guy, Ryder, was Sam, and that these two together were going to be Sam and Palmer. It just felt right. And thank God it was right.
Yeah, I was going to say that this whole movie falls on Ryder's shoulders. If you don't believe in the kid and you don't believe in the relationship with Justin, the movie's game over. But Ryder is so good in the role. I guess what was it that, because you never know with like what that spark is. Do you remember? Or was it just an overall, once he started reading with Justin, you're like, oh, this is it?
There was this weird thing, and as an actor, I'm always aware, like one thing I do, and when I direct actors is I say, listen, people, you need to listen. There was something about the two of them, they listened to each other, and listening is so key to acting and great acting. And they listened to each other and responded and reacted in a natural way that I didn't see any of the other kids doing with Justin. And I also thought Justin was kind of, in the auditions, he was carrying a lot of these kids on his shoulders. He was pushing them. With Ryder, it wasn't like that. Ryder held his own against Justin. And that was what it was. Ryder is not what I envisioned Sam to be like, to look like, at all. But it didn't matter. He was Sam. And my vision of Sam originally wasn't necessarily the right vision of Sam. And I let go of it instantly once Ryder came into the picture.
With Justin, I would imagine that he is offered other scripts and he's, being given opportunities because of who he is and the star power that he brings. Talk a little bit about when and where was it that Justin finally said to you, I want to do this movie. Like, let's make this movie, and sort of your reaction, because, landing him means you might get financing or you can get financing.
Exactly. Well, I've told this story before, but, I was in Scotland shooting a scene. I had a very tiny part in the scene, but we were shooting Succession. And it was when Jeremy Strong's character, Kendall, is doing a rap song for his dad in one of the episodes. And because of the time difference, we were shooting nights. It was like 2 a.m. in Scotland. I had been like waiting for Justin and freaking out. I'm like, I'm getting like my so impatient and frustrated. Will he do it? Won't he do it? And I remember we were on a break right before, Jeremy did the rap song, and I called his manager, Rick Yorn, and I'm like, Rick, what is going on, man? I got to know. And he said, dude, It's going to happen. It's going to work out. Relax. Trust me. It's all going to be okay. And I said, really, Rick? Because Rick, you know, he's a manager, but he's straight up. And he said, yeah, man. And then I said, just have him text me. And then sure enough, Justin says, yo, bro, let's chat in the morning, but I'm really excited about this. And I was like, yes. And that was it. We was in Scotland. And then I felt like he's going to do this thing, man. He's going to do this thing. And then Jeremy did the rap song, and I just was really shouting. But I was thinking about how great Justin is going to do the movie, but I'm pretending that Jeremy's like Justin up there screaming. So it was a great moment.
I know exactly the scene you're talking about, and that's a great behind the scenes of that scene.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons why I really responded to the movie is that the movie is like a really beautiful message about understanding, and, you know, and not everyone is the same. And, you know, everyone should be treated with respect. And can you sort of talk about like the underlying message of the film? And, you know, it's a really beautiful message.
The message of the film is acceptance, and it's forgiveness, and it's redemption, I think. The redemption part being the Palmer part, and the acceptance part being both Palmer and Sam being accepted in the world for who they are. I mean, it was very tough for Palmer to come back to his small hometown after committing a horrible crime and after being the town's great hope, and then disappointing the town by committing this terrible crime, and then trying to get back into society. Not easy, you know? And he's feeling very low about himself. And I think Palmer and Justin and I don't know, we talked about this a little bit, but like he's first really excited about coming back home. But then when he gets back home and he sees the people staring at him and he feels the eyes on him, I think it's like, fuck, you know, this is going to be a tough journey. And often people go back in and they start to self-destruct again, start to go back to their old habits, what if they had them. And I think that Sam gives Palmer this reason to like himself again, to like Palmer himself, and gives Palmer this meaning of being alive, a meaning of moving forward. And you know, Sam has this terrible situation at home with his mother. She's addicted to meth. She abandons him for weeks at a time, just leaves him with Vivian. Yet the one thing his mother gave him was the confidence to be who he is, the confidence to just say, I love you, Sam. You know, you can wear a barrette, you can play with dolls, you can play dress up. I don't give a shit. I love you just the way you are. So she gives him this beautiful, this kind of self-confidence and this strength. And it's really interesting that this woman who's so tortured and such a bad mother on the one hand actually had this other parenting skill on the other hand. And and then just to see a man like Palmer kind of open, and that was kind of, you know, what Justin and I also worked on, is just this slow burn of falling for this kid and starting to appreciate and starting to let him seep into your pores. So I just feel like these movies are important and these characters are important to give a voice. And that's, I guess, why I just felt so destined to have to make this film.
Is it a little nice to not have to worry about the opening weekend box office?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yeah, it's a different world, right? Like my last movie I did, which was a very different situation with stand-up guys, and I didn't have like, it wasn't, this was like this is all on my back. It's like all on me. I hired the crew, I hired the cast. My producers gave me a lot of room to make the film I wanted to make. The other one was more of a gun. I was a hired, you know, gun, and the producer was financing the movie and, you know, wouldn't let me necessarily hire my DP, my designer. You know what I mean? It was a different story. So when that movie opened and bombed at the box office, and nobody saw it. And by the way, I wasn't so happy with the rollout. I mean, I guess they had confidence in it because they put it in all these theaters, but it was devastating to me. And then they basically pulled it after the first weekend. It was really rough. So yeah, this is a whole other situation. We're in 30 theaters, 25 theaters, but it doesn't matter. We know those theaters are going to only have 25% capacity because of COVID. And we know that like it's a different world order. And the reason that, I only had a few options to sell the movie to because I didn't know where it was going. And come June and July, we knew the theaters weren't going to be opening. So we had to sell it to a streamer. And I don't know, there was something about Apple that just felt so right for this movie. And I'm just so grateful that they are taking a chance on us. And they're getting it out there. It's going to get out there.
Yeah, the thing about Apple, which is good for you, is that they're very selective with what they put on the platform. They are there's not an overabundance of product, so they have limited movies, limited series, and and it's easier to shine a light on something because they're so selective. While I love Netflix, they put everything on Netflix.
Well, yeah, that's the thinking. Matt and the two people that run the film division have been incredibly supportive, and I feel like I'm working with real filmmakers. I mean, Matt used to work at South by Southwest, so he, it's got a cool feeling, and we're really excited. So yeah, thank God I don't have to worry about the box office, but then reviews become super important, obviously. So I'm very worried, you get very nervous about that because reviews kind of take on a new life. There's more outlets, more people writing about more things. And, it's just scary what one person will read and what another person reads. So.
Yeah, I'm curious. I wanted to jump in real quick about talking about editing. And did you have like a much longer cut of the movie, or was it pretty much what you released is pretty close to what you had in the edit?
Much longer cut. A much longer cut. And my editor, Jeff, he did The Cove with me. He did Before the Flood with me. He did Racing Extinction with me. We've done a lot of docs together, and we've had a great relationship over the years. So we knew each other really well. But there was a lot more that we shot that ended up not in the movie. Because like a documentary, I kept the camera rolling quite a bit. There were longer cuts, but we felt this is the right length, the right, we really we're paying strict attention to every single frame of this film. It was weird, I have to say, not editing, not screening very much for an audience and getting the feel of the people in the room because of COVID. That was a real drag. I really missed that. I certainly sent the film to a number of friends to watch and give me notes, but I have to say I really missed that experience of showing it in a room full of people and getting that vibe. I got to do it a couple times before COVID, which were really helpful, but they were earlier cuts, obviously. So I did really, really miss that.
Yeah, there's nothing, I don't think people realize what it's like because people don't realize that you've watched the movie 1,000 times. Every frame, so it's no longer. I've spoken to directors who talk about cutting out funny parts of the movie because it's not funny to them anymore, and they need to be reminded, oh yeah, this works.
Yes, yeah. Well, I didn't do that. Thank God.
Well, let me ask you this though. So I forget how long the movie is. It's 2 hours and 5 or 10 minutes, I think. Maybe.
No, it's less.
An hour. Oh, it's an hour 50 something.
Yeah. Hour 50 something.
I got it confused with something else. So did you have like a 2.5 hour director's cut or a 2 hour 45-minute director's cut? Or was it only like a little bit, No,
I think, I had a 2 hour and 30-minute cut for sure that we screened early on to see what we had to lose. but that quickly became 2 hours and 10 minutes, and that quickly became an hour, hour 59. No, I'm really, there's nothing in this that I was like, oh, I wish I didn't cut it. No, I mean, there's a couple things I wish I directed better moments, but a lot of it was due to the fact that there just was no time, I'm not going to tell you what, but there's a location that I just didn't have enough time in, and so I had to just, there's a couple of moments in the movie where I'm like, oh, if I only had another hour, 2 hours, or,
I know I've already pushed you beyond, but I have to ask you, I know who the Lincoln Project is. What made you want to make a doc about them, if you don't mind me asking?
I was trying to make a bunch of PSAs to say, Trump, wake up, people are dying of COVID. What is your fucking problem? Like, do something. And just non-for-profit, just helping people out. And then I saw Morning in America that they did, and I was like, holy shit, well, what are we even doing? Look, let's just play this. And then every time I get mad, I would just start watching these ads, and they were all so great. And then I realized they were made by people that, like, I've been fighting my whole political life against. I've been very politically active, and, I fought against the Iraq War. I protested against, I could go on and on, what these people, who they've worked with. But I had an opportunity. I met George Conway on a Zoom call. And then he said to a friend of mine that the Lincoln Project is interested in, people are going to them to make documentary. And my friend goes, well, Fisher should do that. And I said, yeah. And then we raised some money, and but there were a lot of people trying to make documentary about them. And then we had to, basically, they have nothing to do with the documentary other than they're giving me access, my team. So they interviewed a bunch of us, and they chose me and my friend Kareem to do it. And so we were embedded with them during the campaign. They set up a place, and I did a Zoom interview this morning for 3 hours.
If you don't mind me asking, how long have you been filming?
We started filming September 1st.
I'm looking at the calendar, and you've been filming till now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the amount of footage you have.
A lot. There are a lot of people in the Lincoln Project.
Is there a plan in your mind? Do you want to try to get it done for, like, say, this year's Toronto Film Festival?
There's no plan what it is yet. We haven't even sold it. We've just been funded by individuals. We haven't even really, we haven't even started that process. I just want to know what the film is. So now we're finally kind of understand what we're doing. So it's been a long, with the insurgency at the Capitol on January 6th, it kind of added a whole other color to the film, obviously. And and the Lincoln Project is really focusing on Cruz and Holly and the enablers right now. So if you look at their new ads, that's basically what they're attacking.
My last thing. So you're working on that doc, and you're obviously filming Succession. Are you currently working on other things, or is the Lincoln Project the thing that's really driving your time right now?
No, Succession is very much driving my time as well.
So it's those two things.
Yeah, I'm producing a documentary. I just started. I'm just producing it. It's dealing with the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club in Louisiana and New Orleans. It's an interesting doc that I learned about them when I was filming Palmer in New Orleans. I was staying in New Orleans for part of the time I was filming Palmer. And I learned about this great, amazing kind of, social club called the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club. So I'm kind of shepherding. I'm not directing. Great group of people working with me on that. So that's my other project that I don't have to direct. So it's not as much time consuming as Lincoln Project or the Succession, obviously. And I want to get, I'm getting this film out as my priority, Palmer, and, finding another fiction piece to direct, hopefully soon, with Justin, hopefully again, would be fun. Same cast. I loved everybody. We just had such a great time.
Yeah, you know what's interesting. What I really also, my last question on Palmer. So one of the things about the Palmer's character is he actually doesn't talk a lot. Was that always scripted, or was that something that you worked on set? Justin's like, do I need to say this line?
That was the script. That was the script. That was Cheryl's homage to like a few of like these great, early Paul Newman, Cool Hand Luke or HUD and Steve McQueen and, those kind of silent but brooding guys that, and then when they do talk, like when he confesses to Alicia about what he did, they can't stop, talking with his fist at times, which is what unfortunately some men choose to do. That was a very conscious decision.